Today we continue on our series of Revelation. We've been through the hard stuff. We get to today a city, a great and magical city, an awesome city. It reminded me of the time in about 1978 when my parents declared that we were heading off in the car to see the magic and wonderful city of Adelaide. We had it all built up in our minds, you know. The back seat of the Ford Falcon was laid down so we could fit kids in. We all had our sort of makeshift beds in the back. No police here today. No. We had our makeshift beds in the back, and the idea was we'd travel overnight and the kids would get some sleep, like me. But the first hour of that journey is, you're excited about the journey. You're not really thinking straight. And the second hour of that journey is usually when I get some sort of grievance with my sister, and we'll have a full-on fight. We fought terribly. We punched, we kicked, we pulled hair, we bit. It was terrible. My older sister too. You think she'd be a good example. And that was followed by threats from the front seat of, I will turn this thing around and we'll go home, or you can get out and walk. You had those sort of threats. But eventually we got tired and fell asleep, and with a promise from our parents that we would be woken up when we got about to Mount Barker, because to be ready for the magical lights of Adelaide. Turns out we didn't need to be woken up at Mount Barker because there used to be some sort of rendering plant or abattoir there or something. It used to stink to high heaven. You remember that? You go past it and the stink would wake you up. Eventually, after all the stress and trouble, we got to the magical lights of Adelaide, millions of them. And as kids, it was the biggest thing ever. Magical to a 5-year-old. And I wonder today if we can't look at this city we will look at today, if we can't look at it with the same magical wonder eyes of a child. We've been through the stress of the journey and the dark times and the whole Revelation travel. You know, it's been tough, but the city's coming. All the stress has ended. The end has come. The plagues have ended. The war's been won. The devil, this Satan of old, has been defeated. The beast has been judged guilty. Babylon's over. The books have been opened. The fat lady's sung. Frodo has dropped the ring into Mount Doom. We have won this thing. I've always wanted to do that. Victory is absolute. As we look through the past weeks of our studies of Revelation, as I said, with the places got very dark and gloomy and death and destruction, etc. I have to make a point that all of that bleakness is really not Revelation's fault. It's not even John's fault, who wrote it down. If we're going to find fault with this apocalypse, we have to go back a bit further. We'll read today of a picture of paradise. There it is, we've been there. An amazing holy city coming down from heaven. Our story today ends in the perfect place to live, but we must also acknowledge that our story started there too. To begin with, our paradise was a garden. To end with, our paradise is a city. And if we're looking for fault of who stuffed it up in the middle, we can look no further than ourselves. The judgment and death of Revelation began in the same way our paradise did at the beginning. And the second we said to ourselves, I know better than God, I know what He's asked me to do, but I'll do my own thing instead. I've heard the command of God, yet I choose to disobey. The second that mankind said, I will choose for myself what I will do, And the moment we walked away from a God who loved us, the destruction of Revelation was already written. God basically said this much. He basically said as much to Adam and Eve the first time they sinned. He indicated that there would now be a battle going on for the soul of mankind, and in the end, to win that battle would cost God very dearly. But in the end, the head of the old serpent would be crushed. And now we've got to the place where that head has been crushed. Everything promised has been fulfilled. We can now get to that place where we started, eternal paradise, living with God, living with his people. God, we have come full circle. God is moving, he is changing his address, moving from heaven, moving down to earth, bringing heaven and the furniture with him. Let's read chapter 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. That's a bit sad, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. You're going to miss the ocean? I don't know how that's going to work out, but there's not going to be any sea. Anyway, I saw the holy mountain, the new Jerusalem, coming out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people. He will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." And he who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." God is the only one qualified to say that. Anything we make on this earth, it will wear out, it will rust, it will fall to bits, just takes time. Only God can make something new. Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, and those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulphur. This is the second death." One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls full of the seven last plagues came to me and said, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a high wall with 12 gates, and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, and 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. We're not going to read the whole chapter today, but what you need to know after this is as an angel goes around measuring things. There's a great big long measuring stick, and he measures the city and that way and that way. What you need to know about this city, it is enormous. It would fit comfortably within the continent of Australia or Western Europe. It's that large. And its dimensions are the same, the width and depth is the same as its height. It's a cube. A truly wonderful and amazing city, something we've never seen on this earth even today in modern times. And as we read through Revelation, we see a type of genre appearing in John's writings, is a particular way of seeing these images and relating them to his audience. Or we could say that there's a particular way that these images are revealed to John. There would have been similar shapes and colours coming to him. The names and themes would all be a bit the same in a similar way. We know that Babylon wasn't really Babylon, but a name given to describe a culture of the world. We know that the beast wasn't really a weird-looking leopard with 10 or several heads and horns. It was representative of something else. We know that the dragon wasn't really a dragon. It was something that it was an image given to remind us about something of the nature of the devil. Therefore, when it comes to the new Jerusalem coming out of the sky, we ask the question, is this really Jerusalem, or is it something else? Is God trying to show us something else? Which brings up a few questions about this passage. And I'm going to answer these questions with all the skill and wisdom and diplomacy of a politician with this answer. It's a very balanced argument, I think. We see the first image of Revelation, a new earth. I'll show you the new earth. Yeah. Makes more sense, doesn't it? You fit more in. A new earth. Everything is made just as Jesus said later. And then we have a new heaven, this new Jerusalem. Now, the last one was supposed to be a bit of a joke, but this one is actually, because of it's difficult to imagine, but the size, as I said before, the length and breadth was the same as the height. It's a giant cube. But there must have been something about this picture that John sees and says, this is a new Jerusalem. It must have been something that looked familiar to him. It's something John would have taken immense pride in seeing his own city remade, beautiful, shiny and new. John says later in the chapter that there was no temple in the city, which is remarkable since for the last several thousand years, it's the temple that had defined what Jerusalem looks like. The city had gates around it, each gate with the name of the different tribes of Israel. So I can see why John would have thought, this looks like Jerusalem. Very Jewish pictures. And yet it says later, in the foundation stones for the foundation had names on it also, the names of the 12 apostles. A place that looks like Jerusalem, or is it our earthly Jerusalem trying hard to look like the original? Makes you think. So is it Jerusalem? The answer is yes and no. Maybe it's heaven. Is that what this city is about? Is it our eternal home? Is it the place where Jesus says, I'm going to go make a place for you? Is this what he meant by, in my Father's house there are many rooms, there are many mansions? Is this what he meant? Well, I think the answer is yes and no. John describes this city coming out of heaven. In probably this case, what he means is that the city is coming down out of the sky. It's a symbolic picture of the kingdom of heaven coming down to dwell with man. And the home of mankind is now with our God. The kingdom of heaven and earth are becoming one. It certainly is an eternal dwelling. The city and its ruler will last forever. It has elements of wonder and things that seem definitely out of this world. I look forward to the day when I can walk on the famous street of gold that sort of looks like gold, but it's not, because you can see through it. It's transparent like glass as well. I look forward to walking through the gate that's made of a single pearl. But if I have to be honest with God, and I think God likes honesty, I see this picture of paradise we see with this city, and I get excited about it. I look forward to it. I look forward to visiting this city. But I'm a bit bothered if if this is where I'm supposed to spend all of my eternity, in a city? I have to be honest with God, and I have to say, well, I sort of prefer the garden you had before. You know, I'm a country boy. I like the country. I'm going to be stuck in a city for all eternity. I like to visit great cities. I don't want to live there. So is this city our heaven, our eternal home? The answer, yes and no. Maybe this city is more symbolic of the image of what the church is. It's mentioned there too. Certainly we see these powerful images here of what we're reminded of what the church is. And I'm sorry, fellas, but the church is female. The church has a gender. She's a beautiful bride being prepared for her husband with Jesus. He will wipe away every tear. There will be no more death, no more crying, no more pain. The suffering of the church is ended. And now she's prepared as this bride, beautiful, flawless, perfect. And certainly we see the image of this picture of paradise. However, this bride, if it is a bride, just in a metaphorical sense, it doesn't add up later because this bride has physical dimensions which someone measures. Physical dimensions as a city would, or a large nation. So is it the church? Well, yes and no. I believe this picture of the city is all of the above. It's a beautiful picture of a bride, a new Jerusalem, indicating to me that Jesus will be the king of it. This home will be his and ours. And it's our eternal home, but I don't think it's limited to a city. I think the story of Revelation is very much a global one. It's not going to be just a city we're stuck in. It's the whole earth. There will be a garden as well, as we see glimpses of that in the next chapter, but next week. You see, God has a problem. How do you describe the wonder and splendour of an eternal paradise using only human intellect and human words to get that done? God has had this problem all through Scripture. How do I get them to see what I see, to feel what I feel, to know what I know? You know, the other day I did something it's a bit strange. I never do this. But I was driving past the old cemetery and I had half an hour to kill and I thought, I wonder if I can find the grave of my ancestors. I knew roughly where it was, so I had a look around. And all these other graves around the place have got these big monuments, marble statues, crosses. We've got this little plaque like this big on the ground. We are Scottish. Actually, I think there was a sort of headstone there, and it was knocked down in the 90s with some vandalism. So our family put back this little modern plaque, this big. We are Scottish. Anyway, I did find them, and this is my great-great-great-grandfather, James Telford, and grandmother, Jane Telford, who journeyed to this land of ours in 1839, I think, to Port Adelaide first. He and other guys spent time working under Colonel Light to cut down all the trees to make room for this new city of Adelaide. And when he got sick of that, he moved down to a farm in Strathalbyn, had some terrible tragedy there actually, lost one of their daughters in a haystack fire. Terrible. And after that, they moved to Mount Gambier, and he bought some land at Glenburnie. And he was actually elected onto the East Gambier Council. You ever wonder what that picture of about 1850, 1860 in Mount Gambier was like? And I was thinking about that, and I thought, I know exactly what it's like. I've got some evidence of that. Here with me, I brought the paper. This is a copy of the second edition of the Border Watch, printed in 1862. To give you an idea of what the landscape was and what my great-great-great-grandparents were living in, it actually occurred to me, they were here, they came to the Mount in about 1850, 1860s. This is printed in 1862. The likelihood that he picked this paper up and read it is probably quite high. And he was on the council, so he would have known. Things that are going on the 25th of July, 1862, around the district. There is a new hotel being built in Allendale. Travelling to and from McDonald Bay, there's an opportunity for gentlemen that this new hotel's been opened and 4 miles from the bay, and hopes by civility and attention to visitors to obtain their patronage. No one talks like that anymore, do they? But there's good stabling as well for your horse. Actually, the horses are a bit of a problem. There's at least 3 guys that have lost their horses and are offering £5 rewards for them. There's a blacksmith wanted for Mount Burr. There's there's actually an ad for where is he? W.A. Crouch, who was my other great-great-great-grandfather. He owned a general store here. That's on my mum's side. Is an ad for groceries, drapery, ironmongery, saddlery, stationery, and earthenware. There you go. It's all got. There's an ad if you wanted to get to Melbourne quickly in 2 days, and you still had to get to Hamilton first. You could still get there in 2 days. What a rough ride that'd be on an old Cobb & Co. Royal Mail coaches. And there's one that went the other way to Adelaide through Strathalbyn. I love the motto of the Border Watch in that day. This is nothing extenuant, nor set down aught in malice. Facebook could learn something from that, couldn't it? We see a picture of what was like in 1862, something my grandfather and grandmother would have experienced. And I wondered, if there was a way you could talk to them, just standing there in front of the grave, you think of silly things like this. You think if I could talk to you and just tell you a bit about what our world's like. Maybe I could tell him about that city I saw as a 5-year-old with all the sparkling lights, the same city that you worked on, cutting trees down to build. Wouldn't that be something? We could go for a look. Jump in the car, it'd only take 5 hours compared to your several weeks travelling here. Or better still, we could get in the belly of a giant metal bird with engines on its wings, and it would take us there in about an hour. Wouldn't that be something? I guess the first problem would be to getting him to believe it. And the second problem would be getting them to comprehend it in their own mind, to have the words to articulate it. Now take that problem and go back 2,000 years where John's trying to explain to us this amazing, magical city that would blow our mind even in our modern era, and try to comprehend it to people reading about this incredibly, impossibly big city. The first problem you're going to have that John had is getting people to believe it. The second thing is getting them to have a revelation of it. See, God has had this problem forever. How do you get a human being to believe in him and his wondrous works and then comprehend it? It's a question I'm going to leave us with today. Jesus has revealed this magical place full of wonder, full of light, a new kingdom, our eternal home, and all he asks us for is to believe it. Do we believe it? Do we comprehend it? It says in Hebrews that Abraham, way back in the early days, it says that he was looking forward to a city with the foundations, whose architect and builder is God. Even that time, even the guy that lived 4,000 years ago in a tent saw a city that Jesus was going to make and believed it. If we're going to be called children of God, we're going to need to believe. We're going to need a word called faith. Faith in things unseen. It says Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. We will need faith. If you head down to Melbourne, jump on a plane, head 3 hours across to New Zealand to land in Queenstown, New Zealand. Get there, you chuck a right, you go up the road about 40 k's to a small town called Glenorchy. Just past Glenorchy is a region of farmland nestled in amongst snow-covered mountains. The name of this place is called Paradise, and they're right. I've got a picture of some of these mountains on the lake, and the lake is so still and clear. The snow-covered mountains can be seen the same and the opposite in reflection. They're right. It looks like paradise. Many movies are shot down there because it looks like paradise. New Zealanders have invented another word for it to explain. It's called majestical. And they're right. It really is majestical. The picture that John's trying to explain to us today is paradise, and it's just that the best example we can have of paradise on earth still falls short of the absolute wonder that is our eternal home. And he wouldn't have had all the words to describe it, but he did his best. Will we be like the child that sees all the lights for the first time and goes, wow? Corinthians says, no eye has seen, nor ears heard, nor has it entered in the heart of man, the things God has prepared for those who love him. We will need faith. Shall we pray?